Hello and welcome to today's Crypto Insider, the show that tries to keep you up to date with what goes on in the crypto world. And today we'll look at the last week's most interesting stories. So the big story of last week is that the SEC has again rejected Bitcoin ETF futures. So this is not the first time they've been rejected. Previously, the Winklevoss brothers tried to put an application in that was rejected, and this is another ETF that's been rejected. Specifically, NYSE Arca put a bid in, but it's been rejecting. According to official documentation, the SEC says that its rejection should not be understood as a comment on the value of Bitcoin or blockchain technology, including as an investment, but rather because the New York Stock Exchange Arca failed to make adequate arrangement to make the contract safe. As the SEC said, the applicant failed to demonstrate that its proposal is consistent with the requirements of the Exchange Act Section 6, in particular the requirement that a national securities exchange's rules be designed to prevent fraudulent and manipulative acts and practices. Essentially, the ETF cannot guarantee that the market won't be manipulated or that fraud will take place. It's an interesting development. It's not the first time they've been rejected. Every time these ETF applications get rejected, it has an impact, and particularly a negative impact on both Bitcoin and other old currency prices, and they just go down. The interesting part for me is that I feel the SEC has been sort of very specific, again stating specifically fraudulent and manipulative acts and practices. What that means is that I do feel that at some point Bitcoin ETFs probably will be approved. Interestingly, for me, why is this important? I think once ETFs are approved, there will be more institutional money flowing into the cryptocurrency space. Unfortunately, we still have to wait for a while. But I suppose the SEC has a point in regards to fraudulent and manipulative acts, and once it can be guaranteed that that won't take place, that there will be approved. I think the general consensus is that might be later on this year, earlier next year. But as for now, we just have to wait until ETF applications get approved. Secondly, one of the other stories that really stood out for me was this one, and I think it's a very interesting one. So Germany wants a payment system independent from the US. So this was reported on Coingeek.com, and it says trouble might be brewing for the US dollar's dominance following reports that Germany has called for an independent payment system that is free from the influence of the United States government. This development carries some clout in the economic and finance market, since Germany is the European Union's biggest economy and set to continue taking the lead on the continent, especially after the exit of the UK from the EU. Great Britain is currently the second largest economy in the EU. So this is a fascinating one. The article points out that German's Foreign Minister Heiko Maas proposed the establishment of a European monetary fund as well as an independent SWIFT system. Maas told the Financial Times that for that reason it's essential that we strengthen European autonomy by establishing payment channels that are independent of the US, creating a European monetary fund and building up an independent SWIFT system. For those of you that don't know, SWIFT is currently the underlying system which is used for international money transfers. For me, where this is interesting, and the article here doesn't sort of, for me, pick up enough on that, but it's talking about independent financial networks, and it talks about things like Bitcoin Cash. In my opinion, when you look at altcoins that are really targeting the SWIFT current international money transfer as it's done by SWIFT, those that are targeted are XRP and Stellar Lumens or XLM. So for me, this is a fascinating piece of article, and then a fascinating piece of news to think actually what could they be looking at, and again I think that there's a key space for systems like Ripple or Stellar Lumens or one of those. So it's a fascinating one, and it'll be very interesting to see how this develops. Now, the final story that was of interest to me was this one. So it's Mt. Gox opens claims for creditors to request lost funds. Now, Mt. Gox was the very famous or infamous cryptocurrency exchange which was hacked. I think it's about 4 years now, and it has recently begun accepting claims for creditors to request those lost funds. The online submission form outlines the methods in which creditors can do that, and they have up until the 22nd of October to submit their filings. Those that sort of missed that deadline probably have troubles in getting their funds. But the interesting part for me here was, as far as I understood it, it was always understood that people would be paid back, the money that they, the equivalent in monetary value that they were owed. What it says is that creditors, and again, this article from CryptoSlate states that creditors to be paid in Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash. So on August the 1st, Mt. Gox creditors released a revised basic policy for their Bitcoin repayments following the Tokyo District Court's ruling to order civil rehabilitation in June. Lawyers representing creditors, Mt. Gox's creditors, released an initial proposal for rehabilitation proceeding on June the 29th, 2018. The policy stated that all Mt. Gox assets would be distributed to creditors and full payments to the monetary creditors will be made. Creditors who deposited Bitcoin would be repaid in Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash instead of cash. However, the policy also mentioned that Mt. Gox does not have enough Bitcoin to return all Bitcoin deposited by creditors. So for me, what's fascinating here is that there will be a big impact on the Bitcoin market. I won't pretend that I know what the impact will be, but it does mean that once they start repaying creditors their Bitcoins, that there will be a lot of transactions going on, and again, this is a lot of Bitcoins. I think it's 1.3 billion in Bitcoin. If I'm correct, so it's a significant amount of Bitcoin. So what this means, the marketplace, then once the creditors get their money back, is that there will be a lot of transactions. So let's have a look. Currently, the aforementioned assets are worth approximately 1.3 billion, according to data by CryptoSlate. The plan's decision will be released at the next court date, which is currently scheduled for May or June 2019. If approved, the initial repayments to creditors will be made shortly after. So we're still a little while off with payments. So it'll be sort of mid 2019. But again, from then on, we can see a lot of transactions in the crypto space, specifically of Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash. So this is definitely one to keep an eye on, because it will by then start impacting the market. So I think these are the 3 key stories that I've picked out in the crypto space this week. I'll be very interested to find out what your thoughts are. Are there any stories that I've missed? Please leave a comment below. Thank you.